Good morning, everybody. It's Jillian, and oh my God, my hair looks crazy, but that's okay. I'm wearing my AC/DC shirt again. I did wash it, just so you know. I did wash it. But wow, been processing the last couple days, and it's not easy because I'm learning how to process this political climate through the the whole Jilly Juice protocol. And having now a different biochemistry, I'm able to really have a different perspective on this whole social issue called racism. And I actually dealt with it in my own household, but I didn't know that I was not considered equal in my own household. Because that's really where it comes from. Where people have an issue, they can't put their finger on it. They're rebelling, they're fighting, they're going out in the street or running away or having a major conflict because there's already institutionalized racism in the home, and then it manifests out there on the street and in the government. And then people ask for it, and then when they get it, they don't like it. And this is very insidious. This is really crazy. This is really crazy. So I had to go back and look at my own upbringing to figure out what exactly is going on. Now I'm crossing my arms because I'm kind of like, oh my God, this is crazy. But yeah, Sasha, I had to go through Sasha. Sasha, I'm telling you, I had to go through a major up and down as far as understanding Black Lives Matter and White Lives Matter and all these different human lives matter and everything. And then I looked at my own relationship in my own home. I looked at Democrats. I look at left-wing policies. I'm looking at Antifa. I'm looking at everything that I've experienced in California and then my position as a Vietnamese person. Okay, now I'm differentiating, yes, because I was raised in a very racist state, in a very racist home. Well, what makes them racist? Because already it's differentiated. I was not equal. And it was already told to me that I was not equal. This is why I had an issue with my parents, with my mother, because she would never consider me to be her equal in any way, shape, or form. And you can say that it's a mother-daughter thing. I don't care. There are mothers and daughters out there that have such mutual respect that that's equality. Because equality is something that you either adopt or you don't. You don't ask for permission. And what happens is that we get stuck in these relationships where we keep asking permission to be equal, and someone keeps saying, no, you're not, no, you're not. And that's how you operate. And then you fight for equality when you already have it. You just don't even know it because you have this yoke of inequality because someone told you that you weren't. Someone said that you were different because of your skin color. Someone told you that you were not going to be like everybody else. And it happens in households all the time. In every color, race, ethnicity, whatever. Parents constantly tell their children, well, you only have this capability, so you can't do this. So you're not equal to that person. What makes a parent tell a kid that they're not equal? Okay? What gives a right to the government to say that people are not equal? Well, the people are the government. The people wanted to have differentiation put on census forms, put on government applications. People want to have a breakdown. Statistics. Statistics are one of the biggest racial tools to separate people because it automatically separates people by ethnicity, by gender, by possibly even sexual orientation. I don't think I've seen that. And so then that is the differentiation. And then it's then bled into law enforcement because law enforcement is the government. And law enforcement is taught by the government to separate people by race, to acknowledge race, and then treat race accordingly. And so it's a very insidious thing that now I get it, but I didn't get it before, but I had to go through this process, kind of look at my own life and look at what was I raised with and what I was fighting with. And the only way I took back my equality in my family is when I walked away when I walked away from my mom. And it sucks. I don't want to be that girl that just can't get along with her mom. Okay, but I am that girl that says, you know what, if I can't be equal to you and there's no mutual respect and I have to keep dodging your little quips of disparagement, that's not equality. That's not even mutual respect. I will never be equal to my mother, ever. And I understand that. I will never be equal and accepted into her family. When you know that you're not equals, when you're the one that's always calling somebody all the time. They're not calling you and checking on you, not that you need to be if you reference that, but there's no back and forth. If you're always the one that's calling, there's this total unequal way of relating. And then when you invite them into your life, they keep disparaging you. There is no equality. You have to walk away. But when people are living with racism, it's because they've never acknowledged that they've allowed it to happen. They've allowed inequality to happen. They never took back their power, their equality. Because people are going to do what they're going to do. You can't control the world out there. Someone shouldn't tell you to be equals. You shouldn't have to beg for equality. You already are equal. Now it's a matter of, do you have capability? That's the difference. Do you have the capability to be able to compete for this job? So no, not everybody is equal in capability because everybody has different levels of strengths and weaknesses. But everybody's equal. Regardless of your skin, you're all equal. But the fact that we acknowledge people's skin color, okay? The fact that people know there's institutionalized racism, and that's why you're seeing the upheaval out there. And I get it. I don't love it. I don't love the rioting. I don't love the looting. I don't like the fact that Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all of that are being, run by George Soros. But I mean, what else do you do to stop institutional? But then here's the thing: the DNC, the Democratic National Party, is the one that created the affirmative action and all of those racial differentiations on government forms. And then, so they create a problem, and then they want to be the solution by saying, okay, now this is the whole Hegelian dialectic. Yes, I mean, I'm going to reference that. But how can you create the problem by acknowledging race and promoting institutionalized racism to where even the parents at home are instilling that in their children, and then it gets projected out there. And then when someone says, well, okay, well, I thought I was equal because this, and then I'm being told that I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, what is equality? Equality is mutual respect, but you can't force that, and you can't make people respect you. And so it's finding the like-minded people. It's finding, but even then, I mean, when you're forced to deal with it because of law enforcement who've been trained by the system to treat people in a specific way, therein lies the problem. And it's just like, oh my God, I mean, holy crap. I mean, I've been thinking about this for the last 3 nights ever since all the riots, because I want to be able to figure out and solve this problem so I can move on. This is a problem in my head that I have to resolve so I can move on, because I know I can't help people out there on the streets doing what they're doing. They have to figure it out for themselves. So I'm resolving my own feelings of inequality in my own family to where now, okay, for me to be equal, I may have to walk away from my old family, which I did. And so now I'm seeing how this translates. I'm seeing what I was raised with, what I thought was something that was, I don't know. I thought that I was in a loving household that really wanted to uplift me and felt that I was equal, and I wasn't. And that's why I left a long time ago when I was younger. But so now, and then I'm trying to reconnect, and it's never, ever going to be what I want it to be. I will never be equal. So I had to walk away from that. And so now I see what people out there on the streets are dealing with, is that they've been dealing with racism their whole life, in their household, in their government, in their state. The Democratic National Party definitely institutionalizes racism. The psychotherapy and the statistics and the medical holistic industry have kept people down through their biochemistry. And so this is why there's such a problem. And so it's not like, I'm not adopting this conspiracy type of belief system because I'm, it sounds good, or the way when I was watching the videos a couple years ago, and I really didn't know, I really couldn't articulate my connection to racism and to mind control and to real crazy real world violence, because I've experienced all that too. But I had to finally like let go all the conspiracy stuff, not listen to stuff about George Soros and DNC and communism and all that stuff. And I had to rebuild my body to be able to to see the connections. But I had to connect my body, mind, and spirit to see the connections out there on the insidious mind control type of stuff through institutionalized, well, yeah, racism, but the way the government and the left wing system has destroyed people through oppression. And what does that mean? Well, I mean, look at how they're dealing with, I mean, the Black Lives Matter, I understand that, but then there's people, but it's been hijacked and it's part of the whole Soros thing. But the people who are Black or any person of color have felt the institutionalized racism. They felt it. They know it. They feel it. They can't put their finger on it. They can't articulate. They just know that there's something is wrong here. And so when you don't know how to articulate something's wrong here, you go and emote, you rebel, you commit violence because you can't articulate. You're not very highly evolved enough to articulate. So I had to evolve myself to be able to articulate what exactly is going on and see things for what they are and be able to explain it without lashing out and then people responding to, violence or destruction. And so the only way I could really understand where these people are coming from, where the BLM are coming from, where people who are peacefully protesting are coming from, is when I look at my own institutionalized racism in my own family, and then my own disconnect, not realizing that, yeah, I've already been told I was not equal, and I accepted that. And when you accept that you're not equal, and you differentiate by your race, or by that you're this, or you're Vietnamese, or you're that, or whatever, or I'm adopted. Okay, I've said everything of what I've been raised with, what I've gone through. When you separated yourself, then that's how you will ask the world to relate to you as. And so that's how I can really now substantiate what's truly going on with the Democrat National Party, with the Antifa, with the Black Lives Matter. And there are a lot of bigger nefarious things going on. Now, are they going to, hold on. Well, is the system going to change? Well, first you have to acknowledge that we need to stop referencing each other by race, and we need to get those stupid boxes on the government forms taken off, and that we are already automatically equal with different capabilities. And then that's how we can see change. But right now, they're going to put another Band-Aid on it. With all of these riots and all these things going on, there'll be another Band-Aid put on it. Maybe there'll be legislation. They're going to force legislation in some way, shape, or form. Someone said back in the 1960s, they had all these riots and then legislation came through. Well, I don't know what kind of legislation they want, which is fine. But whatever Band-Aids we need to put on to kind of just keep the peace, fine. But then we have to look deeper. Then when we finally have some peace, we must look deeper. And this is what I'm trying to do with writing this next book, not the one that's coming out this month, but my next book is going to really look at the racism, at the very top. Yes, Linda, you're right. But you have to understand, you still have to have a pyramid, because there's still going to be a top-down thing. It's the fact that we are acknowledging race on government forms. And first we have to say that we don't need to be referencing each other by skin color. We're not yellow, we're not black, we're not white. Okay, if you're from Quebec and you're from Canada, then yeah, you're Canadian. You know, if you're from Vietnam, then you're Vietnamese. If you're living in America, then you're American, and then you can be American Vietnamese, but you're American first. You're human first, then American, and then Vietnamese or whatever culture you want to be. But it's not something that people need to differentiate, and it's not something that we need to force people to hire because we have to meet a quota. But but yeah, obviously we're all equal with different capabilities. Yes, Linda. And so this is why, this is why I see that it's in. So, when I was condemning the Black Lives Matters through Breitbart, which is a very right wing article and news media, which is fine, okay. I was told yesterday that you need to take those videos down, and I'm like, you know what? I should be able to post something that someone says through whatever. But then I understood that I shouldn't be condemning whether or not BLM and Antifa and DNC are all run by George Soros, who wants everyone all in his race war or whatever. Okay. If I say that it's inauthentic that a white person has some kind of is well, how would I say this? If it's inauthentic that a white person fights a black person's race, and they say they want everyone to be equal, but they've acknowledged race, which already separates them, then I shouldn't really have an opinion or say for or against BLM in any way, shape, or form. But here's the thing, I can sympathize. I can actually find similarities in what Black Lives Matters has an issue with. Because I've had to deal with my own institutionalized racism in my own home. I know exactly what they're dealing with. They know there's something wrong and they can't put their finger on it. So the only way they can go out there is commit violence and riot and protest. I get it because I went through my own rebellion as a child, knowing there was something wrong in my household, but I couldn't put my finger on it because it wasn't in your face. It wasn't until like actually right now, 46 years old, did I figure out that I'm never going to be equal to my mother ever. Like she already told me I would never be equal to her. And I think that parents and kids can be equal to each other once they reach a level of maturity. But if you're always putting forth some kind of division where one has to be higher, there's always going to be a conflict. You may have different capabilities, but at some point somebody is going to, I finally reached a level of maturity and understanding of how the world works. And my mother couldn't handle that. And then she realized with the information that I have with J Juice, that I was surpassing her knowledge of whatever. And that's what had caused us to now finally go apart, to where she was trying to keep me down through disparaging marks. So you understand how this works, okay? And I finally walked away from that and took back my equality. Because I wasn't going to be equal in that relationship with her. The only way I could be equal is when I walked away from someone that was not treating me in the manner that I expected, with mutual respect. Now you can have disagreements, you can have different opinions, but it's the lack of respect and the little psychological quips that was undermining. And you will see that. See, that's the thing. It's not always overt. People are, just because someone doesn't call you a bad name doesn't mean that they can't disrespect you in a different way. That's what I've come to realize, why racism and violence can be so under the current. It's comments. It's things that you have come to know so well and accepted, like paying your taxes, by filling out the government census forms, by check marking that box when they ask us, hey, it's optional, but we want to know, are you black, white, Mexican, whatever. Okay? And so it's recognizing those things, that it's so insidious. And then you realize that actually contributes to why there's this inequality. So me just dealing with my mother's, her stuff, and all of her issues of her feeling not equal, and projecting that. And so then where she feels that she has to be above everybody else, that was her issue, that I put myself in that dynamic. And so finally I had to take myself out of that. So for me to understand my relationship with my family and my mother, I can really sympathize and understand without having to be out there and fight. So I don't know what it's like to be Black out there, but I know what it's like to have to deal with institutionalized racism. I know what it feels like, but I won't exactly have their experience as far as law enforcement targeting people because of institutionalized racism and separating the masses, as well as people acknowledging that. Because that's the thing. If you want to stop the acknowledgement of racism, you have to stop referencing yourself by your race. You are not Black, you are African American, and you are human. But you're human first, and then you're African American. You are human first, then you're from Asia, so you're American Asian. Okay? But we don't even need to know that. Who cares? We can see when we meet you what, and if we are polite, we can ask you if they're okay with divulging where they came from. People ask me all the time, well, where you come from? I don't feel offended. But should I have to put that on a form when someone who doesn't even know me can then make these judgments based upon a form? That's institutionalized racism. Okay? And that happens in California. Okay? And then it happens in the medical holistic industry. It happens in all of like the psychotherapy, the social therapy. And it's just like, because yeah, I mean, I belong to the independent movement, which is a very, very left-wing communist movement back in California. I didn't know what it was, but it was an offshoot of the DNC. They're basically like an Antifa. That's what the independents are. They're like an Antifa. And they have infiltrated the African American population. And they're instilling so much institutionalized racism in that community. And so then they've automatically, and this is where, when you have people who are white that do not know exactly, right, Karma, I know I get it. Yes, I get it, Karma. But that's the thing. That's the thing is that even these groups like this, the independent movement, who say, oh yeah, we're all about equality, and then they're all about differentiating people by their race, and they're trying to get into the Black community and trying to do this and do all these things and whatever, but yet they haven't changed the undercurrent stuff. And this is in San Francisco. They haven't changed the government to stop putting these things on the forms. They haven't changed the training in jobs. Yeah, and here's the thing, people are going to be people, Karma. This is for you, Karma. People are going to be people. People are going to be racist, but it is the top that creates this culture. And when you can see that there are people that are making fun or are disparaging you because of your looks, whatever it is, whether it's if you're obese or if you're too skinny, if you're Black, you're Asian, you're white, whatever. If anybody does that, that's a harassment, that's a discrimination suit. Okay? And it's not acceptable. And that's where you should, where people should sue and all of that. But first it comes down to the government. It comes down to the government and the forms and the fact that we need to stop referencing ourselves through the color of our skin. And I know it's very hard because we are so used to calling ourselves a specific name, which is referencing the melanin. And so the book that I'm going to be writing, that's going to probably come out next year, once I really figure it out, is going to mention the biochemical manifestations from the influences of the environment. And that once we recalibrate our body, mind, and spirit, you will see the aggression, the feelings of inequality disappear. because you have finally solved the demons within your own body, mind, and spirit. And that's the whole thing with the Jilly Juice is solving your own demons and then finding similarities out there. Once I solved my own demons of how I was raised, okay, in California, then I could really empathize and understand what you're going through, Karma Golden. But first I had to solve my own demons. But I also can offer you I could offer you something as another perspective, that we need to stop referencing our skin color as the leading thing of who we are. I'm not yellow. I mean, I'm brown, but I'm not even brown. Yeah, I'm brown, but that's not really who I am. That's just the color of my skin. It doesn't define me. But it's what defines a lot of people. And we need to, maybe, in my opinion, we need to stop defining ourselves by the color of our skin. And so, and that takes a recalibration of the body, mind, and spirit. That really does. It's not something that you're just going to adopt. I could say this to you, Karma, and you won't really know it. You'll know it on a superficial level. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But you won't know it on a physical level because you won't physically experience it. Of the resolution of the demons. And so, I had to really face up to what I was allowing in my life once a week, because I called my mother once a week. So I allowed that kind of undercurrent of racism, of inequality in my life once a week. I put myself through that torture for many, many years because I felt I had to, because it was my duty as a daughter to keep in contact with my mother, no matter how much she did not think of me as her equal and that she kept, undermining me in so many different ways. And and me as a daughter, like, oh, I'm going to be a good daughter. I want to be a good daughter. But I was putting myself in a position to always be disrespected. And that's not something that we need to allow ourselves to do. But we have to recognize first what it is. And then we can change it. But at first you have to recognize where it comes from, where you see it. And sometimes you can't even see it. I couldn't even see the racism in my own home until until today, 46 years freaking old. 46. It took the riots for me to figure out the racism in the DNC, in California, in my own home. When I know that my relatives were funding Antifa. They were funding Antifa, giving money to people who are destroying a community. There are ways to get your point across. There are ways. You don't have to destroy your community to get your point across. But it's also people that can't put their finger on what's going on. And so the only way they're able to get their message heard is if they go and either protest or, riot and loot and whatever. And there are paid rioters out there too. So I don't discount that, the agent provocateurs. But they're also legitimate people who really have been a victim, of institutionalized racism. And so I get it. But it doesn't have to be. But, what I've been struggling with is, how do I solve this? Okay? And is it really my duty to solve this for everybody? No, but I've seen it for myself and understanding for myself. So that way I can share then how I'm able to get to this point to where I feel free and taking off that yoke of inequality. Okay, and that I don't have to ask for permission to be equal. It's already assumed. Now it's getting the government to follow suit. And so the government are the people. And so now you have to recognize, like I recognize, and I am equal. I don't need to be referenced and differentiated by my skin color. Affirmative action was probably the worst thing that ever happened back in California. But then people were having issues with being hired because of what they thought was racism. And there maybe needs to be other legislation put out there to where, you don't put anything on your forms to say who you are. But no matter what, when you meet somebody in person for an interview of a job, they're going to make judgments. You can't stop people filtering their biases and all of that. So this is where, you can't force yourself into any company, and you can't, you have to really be so stand out, so amazing that your race would have nothing to do with the decision. That your resume is so amazing and the way you carry yourself is so amazing and the way you sell yourself is so amazing that race will never ever come into the equation. But sometimes it will, no matter what. And it won't matter how awesome you are, because some people are that shallow because they have gut reactions. And it's not really because your skin color, is because they have a biochemical conflict with you and you can't help that. But you won't know it. You'll assume it, but you won't really know why someone doesn't like you or why someone didn't hire you unless you hear about it, unless you were privy to the information that you shouldn't have been. But you'll never really truly know why someone doesn't like you. And it's people that don't even like you don't even know why they don't like you. And that's why I said that, when someone cannot articulate why it is they have an issue with somebody, the lowest hanging fruit is physical characteristics and sexual orientation and belief system. Okay? So it's like, so that's why this next book that I'm writing right now, is trying to define what is hate and what is love. And it comes from imbalances in your body, mind, and spirit. And so it's a difficult subject to talk about because it's something that it's like, it means so many different things, so many different people. And it's the English language of mind control. And, and I have to show all the connections. And then when you break down the English language to verb and noun, an adjective, you realize adjective is a perspective. Adjective is a perception. It's not the truth. Well, it's a truth, yes, but it's not a fact. Adjectives are not fact. It's based upon perception. A truth is not a fact, and a fact is not a truth, but they get mixed up. A fact is where everyone universally experiences something, and then a truth is how someone perceives that experience. That's their truth. So truths can be different, but facts cannot be. Facts are universal. Facts is what creates equality. The fact that you're human means that you're equal. You're human, that's a fact. But will you always have this type of skin color? Yeah, you'll have it, but does it mean that is who you are? And that is, and black is different for different people. Some people say that this darker version of black is black. Some people think that, the Hispanic are black. Okay? So everyone has a definition of black too, their own different definitions. There's so many different definitions. So when you live by the world as if it was the truth and it's not, or it's a fact, if you think that truth is a fact and it's not, then these cemented type of belief systems are put out there. When it's not a fact, it's a truth, but the truth is different. So is it really something that should be cemented? No. So it's differentiating between fact and truth. It's differentiating between fact and truth, and then understanding that we do condone people to differentiate by skin color because we've asked the government to do that, and we allow them to do that. And so at some point we're going to have to change. And so this is what's going on. And here's the thing, I could go out there and say that we need to change the forms on all the government forms to stop them from differentiating. But this is not my battle. This is not my battle. This is the battle of the people who have an issue. If you have an issue, then you go fight that battle. But make sure you own your own battle. You don't take on somebody else's battle because you want to feel trendy and you want to feel like you have an axe to grind, that you don't even know your own axe to grind, so you take on somebody else's. I knew my own axe to grind, that I didn't feel equal to my parents, to my mother, and that's what my issue was. And that was my conflict. And I resolved that on my own. And then I can actually sympathize and empathize what somebody else is going through when it comes to institutionalized inequality and racism. I get it because I dealt with it and I was raised in it. But they never called it racism. They called it affirmative action. There's different names for the same stuff. But when you are equal to somebody and they respect you, they will call you, you will call them, They won't undermine you with little quips of this, and that. You won't feel this conflict all the time. And sometimes we can't get away from the things that are causing our conflict. And so that's what's going on right now. So even though people can't really articulate so much, they know that the law enforcement has been trained by the system to treat people in a specific way. And I understand that. Now, not all law enforcement, some law enforcement are more focused on that than others. However, at some point, we're going to have to articulate and change even the stuff on the forms, and then start changing public perception on how we reference ourselves and define ourselves. And now with open source information, everyone has access to information on the internet. So you have the freedom, you have the equality to go and research what autophagy is. You don't have to pay an institution like Harvard, where it's very, very unequal when it comes to getting into Harvard. You got to have connections. You got to really have connections and be really, really smart to get into Harvard. One of the two. But now you can actually go and look up all the different words that make up the human body and figure out medically what's going on with you. You don't have to go and pay for education. You can actually do it on your own. So everyone's equal that has the ability to read and write and know how to work a computer and research. So you're seeing the equality of our system come into being with the internet, with social media. It's not just, you don't have to go and try to get an agent to go be a publisher with like Random House. No, you can go and find a self-publishing company that will help you publish your book, and they'll do some fact checking for you to make sure that you don't put out some crazy stuff, because they're also involved with it. They don't want their names to be all messed up if you're not substantiating. And then you can get your point out there. You can get your word out, your thoughts out. So, we're heading in that direction. So not all is lost right now with all of these riots. It's almost like the DNC and Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they're trying to change or do something to a system that has not been serving people, but will they truly make the changes that are going to resonate for a long period of time, or are we going to have another Band-Aid? And that's really where it comes down to, is this thing that we're doing right now and the solutions to this rioting problem and all this police problem stuff, will it make any long-lasting changes? And I think if we, like with the jelly juice, is that if you have a major issue that is causing that you might die tomorrow, you could do jelly juice and deal with the pain and purge out that tumor, or you can go get it taken out by modern medicine, which is fine too, and then heal at home. And so you do your stay of execution and then do the jelly juice and then heal from that. So we may have legislation and things, and we may have to acquiesce as a society to alleviate this problem, whatever this problem is. Okay? And then jelly juice, and then my other book is going to come out there, and maybe people can take a look at institutionalized racism on forms and how we define ourselves, and truth and fact and equality and this. Oh my God, there's so much. My brain is popping. And then we can see the change. But right now, we're right in the middle of it. It's like you're watching somebody that's on the verge of doing jelly juice, but they have a major health issue. And they have to do the major health issue situation first before they can look at jelly juice. And so sometimes we may have to do that operation. We may have to put forth legislation, whatever it is, to quell the masses. And then we can start educating people on how to define themselves. And not take up causes for other people when you haven't even solved your own cause and your own issues, where you stay in your lane and deal with your own demons. So anyways, that's been my battle for the last freaking days since this riot. Okay, so I'm not at peace until I've solved this. And so, I'm finally getting there. But I'm in the trenches with all of you that are dealing with this. All of us are in the trenches. I mean, I'm watching the Fox and the CNN. They're all having it. They're going through their own fluctuations and emotions, and we're all having a hard time with all of this. But this is a period of renewal and reflection, and we all have the ability to influence this evolution. And so, I don't know. So anyways, that's all I got to say. Have a good day. Bye.